Coming up, former Harlem Globetrotter Harold Lefty Williams shares why he now plays for God's team. And a young woman escapes the sex trade industry. Well, welcome to 700 Club Canada. Today we're going to be talking about grace, Shireen.
Yes.
Now, I have a story to tell you, okay?
Oh, okay, do tell.
I know, I was a teacher for many years.
Right.
Well, I was also a student. So my last, experience of being a student, I finished my master's, and I was working on a huge assignment. And in working on this assignment, I kept, how important it is to track your sources, right?
Yes.
Very important education to report your sources.
Yes, it is.
Well, for whatever reason, I put my sources on this other page, and in my rush, finishing the assignment, I sent it in with none of the sources. Well, that doesn't go over well.
No.
Certainly not at a master's degree level.
No.
To the point, do you know they can actually kick you out of school if you don't do that? Like, it's a serious offense. It's like a criminal offense in the education system.
So what did you do?
Well, my prof called me, and I thought he just wanted to chat and, get to know me. But no, he apparently wanted to point out that
Yes.
I actually could have been kicked out of the course.
Oh, no.
Well, then I realized what I did. I'm like, please, can you show grace? Can you show some mercy? And he did. He was very gracious. I sent him all my sources, but whew,
Yeah.
I'm so glad he was full of grace, because that would have been a disaster.
Can you imagine? You've worked all
Right?
that time and so hard.
Yeah.
Yikes.
It's good that God shows us grace,
It sure is.
and he's kind to us. And I think it's a lesson. You got to show grace to others, too.
That's right. Grace is two-way, from him to us and us to others.
That's so good. Well,
Yes.
here's a great story of how Rebecca's life was changed by grace after years trapped in the sex industry. Watch this.
He told me to get in the car and they'd show me the ropes, and I said, okay. I found myself in the backseat of a car being told exactly how to ask people to have sex with me and exactly how much money I had to charge them. My entire world flipped upside down on top of me.
Rebecca was 17 when she got swept up in the world of sex trafficking. A few years prior, she had moved away from her strict Christian home in Texas, where even God's love had to be earned.
I grew up in this environment of having to perform. I had to have this perfect identity and always do what was expected of me.
Which is why she kept secret the pain of life's traumas. Her brother's suicide, being molested at age 10, and raped at age 14 by someone she trusted.
It didn't matter that I was doing what was expected of me. There was still terrible things happening to me. Felt like my only value to people was my body and what they could take from me, and just these repeated instances of men abusing their power and control over me.
By 17, she had moved out, dropped out of school, and was moving towards drug addiction, now living with her dealers. To pay her way, she worked at a strip club.
I didn't know who I was. If you don't have a strong sense of identity, then you'll let anyone else dictate it to you. And I had all these terrible experiences telling me I was worthless.
Rebecca needed hope, and for her, it came in the form of a cheap suit and a nice smile. The man promised her drugs, protection, and love.
It doesn't take very much love and attention to make you feel valuable. Just the fact that he wanted me to come live with him. That felt like I was worth something, and that he saw what I was doing and he was gonna get me out of it.
Prince Charming's facade quickly faded as he coerced Rebecca into prostitution. Fear and shame kept her trapped and silent.
No idea what to do. Questions get you killed. I remember after the first day thinking, how could I ever look my mom and dad in the face again? How could I ever tell them what's happening to me? How would anybody ever understand?
Rebecca would spend the next 10 years moving from state to state, a victim of sex trafficking. Her only taste of freedom came from her stints in prison.
It was the first time in 8 years at that point that I was able to sleep every night. The first time I ate 3 meals a day, and I didn't have people touching me that I didn't want touching me. My value was what people were willing to pay me for my body.
At age 28, she would escape her trafficker's grasp when he was sentenced to 2 years in prison for tax evasion. Rebecca fled to Las Vegas, where she met a new boyfriend and got pregnant.
I knew I had to change. I knew I didn't want to raise a baby in that environment. I remember I was in the shower just crying and not having any idea of how I was going to get away or what I was going to do with my life when I did get away. For the first time in a long time, I started feeling burdened to pray. I just prayed for a way out. I just prayed for a way to change my life so I could raise my baby differently, because I wasn't willing to change for myself, but I was for my baby. And I knew I needed God. I knew I couldn't do it on my own.
A few weeks later in early 2012, Rebecca went home to Texas, where her family took her in with loving, supporting arms. Then at church one day with her family, she learned all she had believed about God was wrong.
Learning a different version of God, a God that actually has a ton of grace for me, you know, and that loves me right in the middle of my mess, and that I don't have to perform for. He wants a relationship with me in my deepest, darkest places.
She soon accepted Christ, and later that year gave birth to her son, Isaiah. Rebecca is now the executive director of Valiant Hearts, a ministry dedicated to eradicating sexual exploitation. She no longer hides her past, as she lives in the present as a child of God.
I am His beloved. I have value simply because I exist. No matter how many times I mess up or fail or fall down, He's always there waiting patiently for me to look up to Him and realize, like, hey, God, I need you.
Wow, what a story from Rebecca. It's a story that's heartbreaking, and yet a story that is so filled with God's goodness and grace. You know, when we look at people's lives, those we know and the ones portrayed on TV or social media, there's an illusion, a perception of what perfection is. And we only want people to see the best of us and our successes. We grow up having to perform and have perfect identities, yet the reality is that there's so much pain that we carry in our lives that was never meant to be hidden. Some of these secrets cause us to feel embarrassed and experiencing shame. We feel dirty and worthless. Terrible things happen to us, and we don't know where or who to turn to for fear of being judged or further mistreated. These secrets steal our identity and take us down a path where we totally lose ourselves. And when we don't know who we are or our value, other people define us, and we live up to their definition. Rebecca told us so. We will accept what people offer because it sounds good and looks good, and even for a moment makes us feel good until it doesn't. But it's too late. We're trapped. Can you imagine living a life so terrible that you feel you're only experiencing freedom when you go to prison? I love what Rebecca says about when God started to open her prison doors. I felt burdened to pray. That is a burden that brings change, transformation, miracles. Prayer releases us and breaks us out of the spiritual, emotional, and mental prisons that life can put us in. God meets us through prayer and in prayer, moving us to places where we can unlearn the lies we believed about God and ourselves. As Rebecca shares, we learn about a God that has a ton of grace, loves us in the middle of our messes, and we don't have to perform. He wants a relationship with us in our deepest, darkest places. With God, we don't have to hide our past, but we can live freely in Him, valued. Galatians 5:1 says, "It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery." Do you need to have a free day? Then we have a resource for you called A New Day. Call us at 1-855-759-0700. Up next, former Harlem Globetrotter Lefty Williams shares how God gave him a new dream to aspire to.
In whatever circumstance you face, God wants you to have victory.
It's not too late. Believe that God wants to do a miracle in your life.
And if you need to talk with someone who understands,
all you have to do is call us at 1-855-759-0700.
A prayer partner is waiting to listen and pray with you today.
Harold Lefty Williams has tasted success on the basketball court and in life. But his journey was far from easy.
Well, I grew up in Jersey City, New Jersey. I started in the projects, Montgomery Street projects. My mom did the best that she could. 8 of us, there's 5 sisters. I have 2 brothers, one on my father's side, but my mom also took care of him. My father was in and out of my life. I was mentally and physically abused at the hands of my father. He was an alcoholic. You know, I'd go to school at times with a closed eye. I remember in the 3rd grade, I have my sunglasses on, and the teacher say, take your glasses off. And what I'm doing is I'm making jokes because I don't want to take them off and reveal as a black eye. So the easy way out for me was to joke and be ultimately thrown out of the classroom.
Because his grandfather taught him at an early age, Harold believed in God. He would lie in bed at night and pray that God would give him his own unique gift.
I remember I had just gotten in big trouble. I can't remember what it was for, but I remember being sore, laying in my bed, and I prayed and I asked God. I said, if you can just help me go all around the world. Because see, I associated people who could fly with people having money, and we never were able to fly, period. When we got a chance to move out of the projects, we moved on the street, Gardner Avenue. In front of the house was a tree. So I'd get a milk crate, flip it over, had a hammer out the bottom of the milk crate, and I'd hammer it in front of the tree.
That's when Harold discovered his deep passion and love for the game of basketball.
I had no clue that he was going to use this round basketball and a milk crate to spark something on the inside of me, to strengthen it even more, to get ready for my journey.
Harold was driven to succeed at the highest level, and as a rare left-handed shooter, he was a standout on his New Jersey high school basketball team. Division I scholarship offers were surely soon to follow, with only one thing standing in his way.
You see, in order to qualify, to be NCAA qualified for a college scholarship, you have to have a certain score in your SAT, and it has to balance out with your school GPA, grade point average. Well, there was a problem. I didn't score high on my SATs, so therefore, the schools that I could have possibly went and played for and got a scholarship, it didn't happen for me.
The door to Division I closed when Harold's SAT scores came back extremely low, and he was forced to attend a smaller, less prestigious Division III school.
So I ended up playing Division III basketball at Montclair State University, where that's basically recreational. When you're done, you're thankful you got your degree, and you go off into your job.
Even with the disappointment of missing out on the Division I spotlight, Harold was committed to improving his game, getting his degree, believing that God would soon open another door. He even made a strange deal with God.
So my first year in college, I pick up and I'm trying to really get in His Word, because now it's my first year really on my own, like literally away from everybody, you know? And I'm trying to read this King James Version Bible, right? There's a lot of these and thous, and I said, man, I can't understand this. I close it up and I begin to get frustrated. So I told the Lord, I remember kneeling down in prayer, I told the Lord, I said, if you give this to me, I promise you I'll read it. I promise you.
Harold's dedication paid off, as in his final year, he was awarded with Defensive Player of the Year honors and even made the Dean's List for academic achievement.
When I finished school in May of 2000, it was time to move on. It was time to figure out what is the next chapter, because I wasn't Lefty yet. What's the next chapter for Harold? And I went down to a free agent camp. I went down and played, and I thought that this was it for me. I thought that a lot of other opportunities would come out of this, and it didn't pan out the way I thought it would.
It looked like another door closed, and the dream of playing in the NBA got even further away. Harold hopped on a plane and spent a few seasons playing overseas in Europe and Asia, but time away from family and the culture shock forced him to make a tough decision.
I don't know, I was frustrated with trying to communicate with the language. And I said, you know, I'm done. I tell my agent, I said, listen, man, if you can find me a job making decent money, I'm fine with that. And then I started this job in Merrill Lynch, and I never forget, I will never forget, it was a Saturday morning. I had just come in the office, and I got ready to log in. Holy Spirit spoke to me as clear as I'm speaking to you today. He said, you must go back in order to go forward. I said, huh? And I closed my eyes. And I'm like, oh, Lord, what is this about? So I was a little on edge, so I backed away from the desk. Called my mom and I told her what, God had been telling me, and she began to actually cry on the phone too, and she began to confirm what the Lord had spoke to me. I hung up. I typed the letter of resignation. This is purely on faith, not knowing where I'm going.
Harold gave his dream of professional basketball one more shot, and this time, he was determined to do it God's way.
I came off the job thinking this is it. I got my instructions, it's coming. But you know what? I had another delay, and I had no clue that it was coming. I thought that after my obedience, I was coming into what God had for me.
Even with this newfound hope, it seemed every open door was closing before he could walk through.
I still felt that this was it for me to move on, to go to the NBA, and it didn't happen. And I had doors slammed in my face and deals blown up in my face. God had me in the wilderness. What I mean by the wilderness, he had me prepare, train, and seek him, and I'd do different Bible studies with my brothers and sisters for a while.
This time, Harold didn't quit. He applied the same work ethic to his faith that he did to his game. Harold didn't know it, but he had caught the eye of a scout for the world-famous Harlem Globetrotters.
They flew me to Houston, Texas, to try out. I was so nervous, I stunk up the joint the first day. So the second day, I'm coming down. And this is where we start to do some things and actually do some showman stuff, different tricks, different, the wonderful circle that everyone's learned to grow to love and see, which is the magic circle. And I'm in the magic circle and I'm doing some things, and next thing you know, it's time to go through the acting part of it, because the showman is a great entertainer. He can capture the audience like that. It's very important to have that.
Harold left his Harlem Globetrotters audition feeling confident that this was it. But days went by without hearing a thing. Then, the phone rang, and it was the call that he had been praying for all of his life.
I got a phone call from Jeff Munn, CEO. He said, we're gonna name you Lefty. You all right with that? I'm looking at the phone. Of course, yeah. I'm okay with that,
Harold Lefty Williams finally fulfilled his dreams and got to share his unique gift with thousands of fans inside some of the world's most famous arenas. And he did it God's way.
Not only did the Lord allow me to fulfill my dreams, not only did he allow me to play with the world-famous Harlem Globetrotters, he allowed me to be the first ever left-handed showman in Globetrotter history. And then he had him name me Lefty. And then I began to realize that he was there all the time, and I realized that a delay was not a denial.
What a journey for Lefty Williams. When he was ready to give up on his dream, God told him to return to it. Have you given up on a dream? Maybe too many doors have shut for you too. Well, here's 2 lessons that I picked up from Lefty's story. First thing I picked up was, be as disciplined in your spiritual life as you are in pursuing your dream. Sometimes we can get very caught up with the dream and we don't actually pursue God. We just find ourselves pursuing the dream. Well, Lefty says, keep pursuing God while you're pursuing the dream. And the second thing that really stood out to me in his story is wait on God's timing. He will work it out. He will work on your dream. So, I just think a lot of it is about timing, and we don't get God's timing. We like our timing. Lefty had to give all the timing over to God. You see, it's not about the destination to realizing your dream. It's actually about the journey. And God forms us along the way, and he uses everything in our life, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It can all be a part of accomplishing the dream that he knows is ahead for us. 1 Corinthians 15:10, Paul shares a very important word. He says, but by the grace of God, I am what I am. And his grace to me was not without effect. No, I worked harder than all of them, yet not I, but the grace of God that was with me. So here's what Paul's saying. Paul gives God credit for who he is. But because of God's grace toward him, that's who made Paul, Paul. Not only God's grace, but in combination with Paul not giving up and actually working hard. It's that pursuing God while you're pursuing your dream. It's that work ethic towards your dream, but recognizing that a lot of it comes as a result of God's grace. So what are your dreams? Maybe you've given up on them. I want to offer you a free resource called The Sky's the Limit. Don't give up. Call us today, 1-855-759-0700, and we'll return with Shireen and a powerful lesson on grace.
Someone should download the CBN Family app to get an easy view at all of CBN's media. Having access easily to that faith-based content is just so invaluable. This is a great way I could take that with me on the go, you know?
This app is really easy to use. My favorite feature is the fact that you can look at the different feeds, like the news, animations. This app has exactly what you're looking for as far as Christian values go.
We're thinking about grace today. What do you think when you hear the word grace? Is it something you say before you eat a meal? Everyone who knows me knows that I pray before I eat, whether I'm in a restaurant or with non-Christian friends. And it's very interesting how often I get asked by my non-believing friends to bless our meal when we are out for lunch or dinner. Is it the name of someone you know? This is my aunt's name, and I remember her every time I hear the word. Perhaps it's a set of characteristics or personality traits and attributes that people possess. I actually think my aunt lives up to her name because of how she treats people. So for me, it is all of these things that may come to mind. Yet, it is so much more, and I want to draw our hearts and our minds back to the foundation of grace. Ephesians 2, verse 8 reads, "For by grace you have been saved through faith, and that not of yourselves. It is the gift of God." Grace is the unmerited gift of favor that God extends to us, first in saving us and then in working in and through our lives. Grace is not deserved or something we work to earn, but it's freely given to us. God shows us grace when he works in our lives and when he answers prayer. Grace is a quality of God which is revealed in the free gift of salvation and the gifts that he continues to give us out of his love for us as we journey in faith with him. Grace is God's mind, heart, nature to treat us better than we deserve. But is that where our understanding of grace should end? There are passages in both 1 and 2 Corinthians where God adds to and expands our understanding of grace. One familiar scripture is in 2 Corinthians 12:9. "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." This speaks of grace not only as something that God possesses, not only his quality or nature, but as power that is imparted, a force from God at work in our lives to change how we behave or respond to challenges and situations or people. In other words, God's grace in me gives me the power to be who he's made me to be and who I need to be in times of trouble, like when I was battling cancer, or in my teaching job, or as a pastor. My disposition, my speech, my treatment of others is impacted because of the power of grace that I allow to take control in me. Grace is active and produces real practical outcomes in our daily lives. We show grace when we make daily choices to interact with others with kindness and good intentions, no matter what something or someone else does. This is practicing gratitude, choosing forgiveness, having compassion, showing acceptance. The powerful truth about grace is that God's favor that saved us and gifts us is meant to overflow into the lives of others. God's powerful and practical help is ours to live and share whenever and wherever we are or where others need it. Freely received from God and freely shared with others.
What would we do without the grace of God in our life? And thank you for your grace in becoming a partner. You see, grace is a way to actively participate in what God is doing. You can start at $20 a month if you haven't joined us yet, and we offer Pledge Express. This is an automatic monthly withdrawal system that makes it easy for you to give, and it cuts down on administrative costs. So we have a gift for you for joining us as a partner. It's a new CD entitled The Lord is My Shepherd, a Psalm of David. You want to get that because it will deeply encourage you. Call us now, 1-855-759-0700. Let's do this together, and let's show grace to everyone across Canada.
It's the most memorized passage in the Psalms.
This is a guide for every pilgrim, every Christian as you go through life.
The Christian Broadcasting Network presents The Lord is My Shepherd, a Psalm of David. You'll discover the path to true provision, the key to claiming victory over your battles. Plus, learn how to hear God's voice and experience His presence. Get The Lord is My Shepherd, a Psalm of David. Call or go online now.
Well, Shireen, I really appreciated your devotional today on grace.
You.
Grace is a practical thing that works itself out in our life, right?
That's right, as we're walking in faith with the Lord.
Yeah. And I love how you unpacked that. Like, there's just different ways to show grace to others.
Yeah.
But we don't have to do it all, muster it all up on ourselves, right?
Nope, it's all through God's power.
Yeah.
For what we need, you know?
Yeah.
He saved us, and then He's giving us what we need for the rest of life.
That's right. That's right. And I hope you're experiencing God's grace in your journey as you follow Him. And thank you for encouraging us in this ministry as we partner together. Here's some of our partner comments.
Pauline says, thank you for your prayers and your ministry on TV. It is such an encouragement to those of us that don't go out much and need the fellowship. God bless you all. Thanks, Pauline.
Yeah, that's so great. Do you know that my mother-in-law's name is Pauline? So I love your name, and thank you so much for sharing that. That's encouraging. Well, Carol said, I want to thank you so much for your ministry in Canada, as I believe it is ministries like yours that are going to cause a mighty move of God's Spirit across our land. I'm a senior at 82 and really enjoy your program. Well, I tell you, that is deeply encouraging, and we believe that too.
Yes.
When you share the gospel, the good news of Jesus,
That's
right? It changes and transforms a nation.
That's right. And all we have to do is share Jesus. He does the rest.
He does. And there is a move of God across our nation, Shireen, as we're talking with people. God is stirring up a fire within people, right?
Yes.
I think that what the evidence of God's move in Canada for me is partnership.
Yeah.
I'm seeing more and more ministries really partner together. And
well, we're all in this together.
That's right.
God's kingdom for His glory.
That's right. And the more that we partner together, that enables God to move, you know, even more freely. So thank you again for partnering with us. Hebrews 4:16, let us then approach God's throne of grace with confidence.
So that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need.
God's grace is enough for you. Thanks for watching.
To contact us, visit 700club.ca.
Coming up, an adult film actor leaves the industry to find fulfillment, and how a woman is healed instantly from years of drug addiction.